Hey, also, let's talk about the truth about gaslighting. So, we hear this term tossed around all the time, and they're like, oh, well, this person is gaslighting me. And I want to get to the actual purpose of this video very early on in the video. So, I'm going to tell you this. The way to spot gaslighting and how to know if it's actually gaslighting is to understand that gaslighting has an intent. So if someone is trying to reshape your perspective or trying to deflect in your information that you've given them back onto you, if someone is trying to convince you otherwise, and their intent is to blame shift or to incite guilt, then that is gaslighting. If they're trying to remove themselves from any sort of consequences, that is gaslighting. If someone shares a different perspective from yours, that is in fact not gaslighting. And so when I'm watching, reels and videos and people are, misinformed about what gaslighting is, and they're saying things like, well, he gaslit me because he said that isn't how he saw the experience. Well, there may be times where someone doesn't see the experience the same way as you. There may be times where they share a different perspective as you, and that is okay. People are allowed to share different perspectives. People are allowed to feel differently about certain situations that you experience collectively. So there are going to be more times than not where two people go into a situation and they experience them very differently. I'll give you an example that's a parenting example. So I had a conversation with my son when I first started dating the person that I'm in relationship with, who you've seen on several of my videos. And when he came on the scene, my son was not pleased about it. And he's an adult now. And so we had a conversation around, well, this is the way I see the perspective, or this is my perspective about the situation that you're speaking on. And then he shared his perspective. And I understand that you have to be super emotionally intelligent to be able to have that conversation with your child. However, he was able to share his experience with what happened in his childhood when I dated new people and how it made him feel and how he didn't want his siblings to feel that way and how he struggled with certain aspects because of the situations that I had put him in those experiences. And I was able to share the perspective that, hey, listen, I valued giving you what I thought was an actual family. And I understand that for you, just having the two of us together in our house together was a family. But at the time, hindsight is 2020. At the time, I didn't see it that way. And so he was able to share, well, for me, it shaped the way I feel about trust. It shaped the way I feel about relationships. And we were able to have that conversation where I said, okay, I can value your perspective while also having operated in mine. And we can come to the same space right now and have the conversation, but understand that both of us see it very differently because you were the child in the situation and I was the adult in the situation. And we can respect each other's perspectives and respect each other's insight. However, that conversation could have gone very differently if he would have shared his feelings and I would have said, that's not what happened. What happened is that I was trying to do the best that I could for you and you just don't appreciate that. That is gaslighting. That is trying to get someone to believe that what they experienced wasn't true, even if they're sharing that it was the true emotional experience that they had, by trying to alleviate the pressure and the consequence and the accountability from myself. And I chose not to do it that way because I am accountable for the actions that I made, even if they were with good intention. And I'm also accountable for having those conversations later that say, you know what, I did this wrong. And I'm really sorry that it affected you in a negative way. Now, the way that it looks inside relationship is like this. So when I was dating my previous partner, we had this experience where I had found out through different avenues that the dates that he was taking me on were the exact dates that he had taken his ex-wife on. So I'm like, the concert that he took me on was the exact concert, same performers that he had taken her to. There were so many different experiences, certain restaurants, it was like literally recreating the relationship, but trying to correct it, which I know that people do, right? We do that as, adults when we've experienced wounds in our childhood. We try to inadvertently find a partner that's similar to the parent that we had when we were a kid. And then we try to recreate that scenario by doing it better so that we can heal our past, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast, but we do it. And so I recognized that that was happening. And so when I recognized that it was happening, I brought attention to it. And I said, I feel like you're trying to recreate the situation. And it makes me feel as if you're trying to redo that so that you can maybe feel a little bit less like a failure for that relationship not working. I didn't use those exact words, but that was my perspective. Well, later, there is a body of water near us that is a lake that I had been to before. Now, I had previously been to that lake with a different partner, but it's a lake that's the closest lake to us. And at the time, we could not schedule to go to the beach, but for his birthday, he had expressed interest in going near water. So I was like, okay, well, we can go to this lake. We can just stay on a completely different side of the lake. We can stay in this little community that's completely different. The hotel that I had gone to years prior with my boyfriend doesn't even exist anymore. So it wasn't like I was trying to recreate the situation. I was trying to take him to a body of water, which is what he wanted to go to. Now, the fight that erupted at that trip was astronomical because from his perspective, I was doing the exact same thing that I had told him that I didn't like that he was doing. From my perspective, I was taking him to a body of water that was the closest body of water, and I wasn't trying to recreate every single experience that I had had with that previous partner. It just happened to be that that body of water was the closest one, and I thought we would get to experience the water together for his birthday. Now, I recognize that to him, it didn't come across that way. However, when I shared my perspective and I said, I was trying to take you to a body of water. I understand that you think this is the same thing. From my perspective, I don't believe that it is. I don't believe that it's taking a list of all of the things that I did with that partner and recreating them with you to do them differently or better or to correct some wrong. In fact, I would never be able to do that because that was an 8-year relationship and there's no way I can take you to do all of the things that I did with him, nor would I want to. If I took you to a concert, it wouldn't be the same concert that I went to with him. I don't take you to the same places that we went to. I don't take you to the same restaurants. This just happened to be the closest body of water. And from his perspective, it was, you still want to be with him. You're still in love with him, blah, 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 blah. So he went on this whole tangent. And so by the end of this argument, I started to question, did I actually do that? Was I actually doing the same thing that I accused him of? And the reality was no. My intent was not to recreate anything. I just knew that was the closest body of the water. And actually, if I'm being 100% honest, it was what I could afford at the time for a weekend getaway for his birthday. In the conversation, he tried to make me believe that I did it on purpose. I was still in love with him. I was a hypocrite because I had already suggested that he not take me on all the dates that he had taken his ex-wife on, and then I did this, etc. I can see his perspective. But I was, at the end of that conversation, starting to take on the guilt that he was trying to put onto me. So when you're thinking, is this person gaslighting me? You have to be hyper vigilant of their intention. You can even ask them. And even if you're dealing with somebody who's abusive verbally, you'll be able to, or someone who actually does have narcissistic traits, you'll be able to tell their intention by just asking questions. You'll be able to say, okay, is that what you're assuming that I was doing? Or is that actually how you feel? Or how did you come to that conclusion? And when they start answering the question, you'll be able to hear in their verbiage if they're trying to guilt you or shame you, or if they're trying to come to some conclusion in the conversation. If they're trying to guilt and shame you, they'll say things like, that are accusatory. They'll tell you that this is what you were doing. They'll tell you that they don't want to hear what you have to say because they're not trying to come to a resolution. They're trying to make you feel bad. And when they're saying, no, this is what you did, they are having you question your reality and absorb what they assume is what's happening. And that is gaslighting. And so when you're trying to uncover if it is gaslighting or if it is someone sharing their perspective, the clear way to be able to do that is to have the conversation around, well, I can value your perspective, but this is also mine, and to see if they can hold space for that. If someone can't hold space and value that two perspectives exist, then they're trying to either feel safe in a space that says they have to think and believe like me in order for me to feel safe, or they're trying to gaslight you because they don't want to deal with the consequences of this. And like, I feel like in my situation with that ex-partner, he was just trying to guilt and shame me because he had felt guilted and shamed, even though I tried really hard not to in our other conversation. So it was like a get back. And that's just how he was. Like vendettas were his thing. And so I realized that that's what he was trying to do. Now, here's what you can do if you recognize that someone is gaslighting you. You say things like, well, I have the space and capacity to hold both perspectives to be true. You can say things like, well, I understand that two people can experience the same situation and have two different perspectives. This is my perspective. I value your perspective. You can say things like, I understand that that is the way that this came across to you, and I'm really sorry that it made you feel that way. Do you mind if I share my intent? That can come across as defensive if you don't say things like, do you mind if I share my intent? Because they're going to think that you're defending yourself if you don't preface it that way. But what the clues that you're looking for are, what are they trying to get to at the end of this conversation? Do they want you to be on their side? Do they want you to accept some fault, blame, shame, guilt, etc., so that they can proceed with the consequences that they want to give you? Or do they want to come to some sort of conclusion, some sort of repair after a rupture in a relationship? Now, in my example with the trip thing, like, he basically didn't talk to me for months, accused me of ruining his birthday, was very like standoffish, even though we were still in relationship. And so I paid the price for literally 90 days after that thing happened. So I know that he was not interested in a conclusion or a solution. Now, with the conversation with my son, we were both able to, there wasn't a conclusion. I can't go back and change the past, but we were both able to have that conversation and end the conversation with a respect for both things to be true. Someone was trying their best, but there was a casualty inside of that on this person's emotional well-being. And so if the conversation doesn't come to some sort of resolution where you can either agree to disagree or you can value each other's opinions and hold space for them, and it comes to some sort of, I'm going to continue to guilt, blame, and shame you until you believe what I'm saying to be true, then that is for sure gaslighting if it ends that way. And so when you think about what you should do when you're being gaslit, you can end the conversation. You can offer some different perspective and different communication styles inside of there, the things that I was saying earlier. Or you can say, I feel like you're trying to incite blame, guilt, or shame, if I could talk. And I don't want to feel that way. I want to understand each other's perspective. If your clear goal is understanding and their clear goal is understanding, then gaslighting isn't in the space. If they're offering you a different perspective, it's not gaslighting. Please understand that. Gaslighting has an intention. Gaslighting is trying to get you to believe something that isn't fully true, trying to get you to change your perspective about something so that the wrongdoing has zero consequence, and or so that consequences can be placed on you. So if you're in a space today where you're having communication and conversation with somebody who you feel like is excessively gaslighting you, just understand that that is something that is fully about them and less about you. Your perspective is real. Your perspective is valid. So is theirs. And as an end result, you don't have to accept someone's guilt, blame, or shame. You can hold space for two perspectives to be true, and also understand that maybe perhaps if someone's continuously gaslighting you, that you need to set some boundaries or end that relationship. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, if this message resonated with you, like and subscribe to the page, share it with somebody that you know could perhaps break them free from the bondage that they're experiencing, because we know that knowledge gained and kept to ourselves is selfish, but shared with other people to help them break free from their bondage is exactly what we need to do to incite information into the world to help people live freely. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.